With school athletics, tournaments, and sports season being canceled, young athletes are continuing to find ways to stay active while social distancing. And though some schools have resumed into limited workouts, Dr. Scott Burkhart, a neuropsychologist at Children's Health Andrews Institute for Orthopedic and Sports Medicine in Plano, says that social distancing restrictions also present a unique opportunity for young athletes to focus on an element of their performance that often gets overlooked, their cognitive skills. And joining us today is Dr. Burkhart. Doctor, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Ashley?
Doing well. Thanks again for joining us today. So we kind of mentioned a little bit about the cognitive skills. So though some schools have resumed those workouts, social distancing restrictions are definitely still in place. What can athletes be doing when they're at home to improve their performance?
Yeah, we've really emphasized the idea of kind of focusing on tangible things that athletes can do individually, right? So the ability to utilize some of these cognitive skills to review game film, for them to be able to, think through maybe some of the neck up sort of approach to what they're doing. Are there ways that they can improve their focus during practice? Or, has attention been a problem in terms of some certain areas? Even something as simple as traditional goal setting can really be a time for athletes to kind of take a step back, reflect, and what they're trying to achieve this upcoming year.
And for anyone who might not know exactly what cognitive skills entails, what does that entail?
Yeah, we take a pretty detailed approach. So, our idea is that the eyes and the brain are 2/3 of the part in terms of any sort of athletic action. And certainly that parallels to football, right? So your eyes kind of have to do the searching, your brain has to do the deciding on the football field, and then your body actually executes what you're trying to do. So we spend a lot of time with, focusing on vision, how we can utilize things like visual attention, visual tracking, ways that we can improve vision. Obviously, football is a highly visual game. And then, the other side of that is the decision-making process. And so I think I read somewhere there's 1,200 different decisions that can be made by a single player over the course of a football game. So everything from, should I pass here? Should I step here? Should I turn here? It's an incredibly detailed, right? I mean, I think every high school football coach kind of classically says it's a game of inches, right? Well, a lot of those inches are being made from a decisional standpoint within what the brain's seeing. And so it really kind of works back within the model that we use.
And then with that, obviously you talked about how many decisions are being made. Why is that visual training so important for them to do before they step onto the football field?
So yeah, it's interesting. A lot of the research in and around football, quarterbacks especially, have garnered a lot of attention. But what we know from the quarterbacking decision, or the really elite quarterbacks, is that they are actually better at finding the exact target that's the correct target faster. So their eyes are moving quicker, essentially, to the more open receiver, and they're doing it in a more fluid pattern so that their brain is able to make the decision quicker. The other thing that's really fascinating from some of this vision research is that the elite athletes are also holding their vision longer on the target, right? So I think sometimes it gets misconstrued in sports, right? Don't stare down your target. What the brain is actually naturally trying to do is to identify what the best option is and actually hold that gaze longer on the correct decision.
Very interesting. And for we know that obviously athletes go through practices, they do the on-field, they do the weightlifting training, but a big part of practice is watching film. So for an athlete who maybe even a younger athlete is able to review film, what should they be looking at when they're rewatching that?
Film's a lot like any sort of schoolwork you would do, right? So in the same sense that you would read a book, or, you would integrate something along the lines of, say, a math assignment, right? Football film is very similar in that same way. How quickly do my eyes identify the correct solution to the problem? And then how quickly can I solve the problem, right? And that goes even a step further within watching film. How quickly can I take what I saw, recognize where my own body position was, what my decision process was, and correct that? And so that same thing doesn't happen. I think every coach would, probably across Texas, would probably love it if every athlete watched one set of film and went out and made the decision and, adjusted. But that's what we're trying to get them to see. What were the little details that made the big impact?
And then kids have so many things going on every day. Do you have any advice to help a young athlete achieve success with many different thoughts going through their mind?
Yeah, this time of uncertainty has kind of really affected everybody. And I think it's a time to take a step back and reflect. It's a time to take a step back and prioritize. And I think it's, we have never experienced anything like what's currently going on in this country or the world. And so, for that matter, I think getting athletes to see maybe what the real reason I'm doing this is for. I think sometimes we often lose sight of when it's 95 degrees and you're doing speed camp in August or July, why am I out here? Why am I doing this? If athletes have that anchor of what those goals are, or what that passion or what that driving force is, I think it's really powerful. And, for so many athletes, especially spring athletes that have missed out on that experience, it's really tragic in a sense. We don't realize how much we love sports or how important it is. Or one of the things that we talk a lot about is your athletic identity. You don't realize how much of who you are is wrapped up in something until it's gone, or until it's not there, or until it gets taken away. So it's important to really kind of reflect on that a lot.
Absolutely. And like you said, sometimes you don't realize how much you're going to miss something until it's gone. And obviously those athletes who got their seasons canceled throughout this spring and stuff, are there any potential positives that might result from this time off for those athletes?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things, I work in a sports medicine facility here at Children's Health Andrews Institute. And one of the things that we consistently see is overuse injuries. Overuse injuries, while not maybe a brain problem, are certainly a byproduct of, being too much in one certain sport for the whole year. It's fascinating. There was even an article that came out from Dr. Andrews, who's, kind of our namesake on the building here. And he even said that as we go back into football activity, as we go back into conditioning, how important it is to have that slow start. So this time period was really good. It gave a lot of athletes some time off and some, probably nagging overuse type injuries an opportunity to heal. But I think the flip side of that is that as we reintegrate back into sports, how important it is to really be aware of that slow, gradual progression, right? We can't be thinking that we can go out there and sprint the, however fast we thought we were back in January or February.
Absolutely. And doctor, is there anything else that you think that coaches or players need to be cognitive of as they're heading back into these workouts?
Yeah, I think those last points are really important, obviously, right? It's, think about kind of starting slow, and it's a lot to kind of throw a kid into the Texas heat really quick. That's just kind of a general health thing. I think if I'm going kind of more on the, the cognitive side of what we discussed, it's really important to know and realize that, while we see these athletes out there performing, there's a tremendous amount of what they're doing from a training standpoint that can be done from the neck up. A lot of that vision, a lot of that decision making is really paramount in terms of their ability to perform athletically.
And then, doctor, we got to ask you before we let you go here. We talked a little bit beforehand. Grew up in Oregon, but man, now you're down here. You're around these Texas high school football programs all the time. Was that a little bit of a shock of how big, especially maybe up here in the DFW, since y'all's office is in Plano, of how big of a stage the Texas high school football game really is?
I think I've been blown away by a couple different things about Texas football. One, the initial shock factor of stadiums, and certainly where we are here in North Dallas, there's no shortage of giant stadiums. But one of the things I was really impressed by is just the level of talent. You don't realize the rich history that Texas football has, the players in the collegiate and NFL level who have ties even back to high schools that might be 5 miles from where you are. There's just a tremendous passion for the sport here. There's a really good, just inherent, almost, you could go as far as to say that, football really is cultural here in Texas, which is the unique way it is in some states.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Burkhart, we can't thank you enough for joining us here today. And thank you and all of Children's for all you do for Texas high school football.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.